Tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ dhammāṃ saṅghāṃ Anuttaraṃ upaccayaṃ namasāmi. So I'd like to offer my respectful greetings to any members of the Sangha who may be watching this video today, and my blessings to all the lay Buddhists. So we are in unprecedented times. This week we'll be celebrating Visakha Puja, and for the first time since I came to Thailand 40 more years now, we'll cancel all the circumambulation, candlelight circumambulation, and monasteries throughout Thailand, throughout the world are closed. In many places the monks are going on alms round, and everything seems to be on pause, sort of in suspended animation. Everyone's perception of the passing of time has been distorted. But Visakha is a good opportunity, I think, to recollect that there are certain things that change, or everything, almost everything changes, but there is the akalika dhamma, which is the Dhamma which is timeless, and that it is in our aspiration to realize the deathless, the timeless, that we cultivate the tools and the virtues that enable us to live within the world of change in a way that we can both create happiness and true welfare for ourselves and for others. So change is the one most important object or subject of our study as Buddhists. We don't put the same emphasis on faith in dogmas that most other religions do. Our emphasis is on study, education, cultivation, development of our understanding of ourselves as human beings and the world we live in. This is our primary task. And the more that we look at our body, our mind, the more we look at the world we live in, the more clearly we see anicca, the more clearly we see change. And we become more sophisticated and aware of the different kinds of change that take place. That is to say, there can be very slow, steady, predictable kinds of changes that take place, and there can also be sudden, unpredictable changes. Merely observing the variety of kinds of change already gives us a certain level of wisdom, that we don't expect things to change only in the orderly, predictable way and feel overwhelmed or panic-stricken or angry when things change in the unpredictable, unexpected ways. You say, yeah, that's change. It's like this. The world is like this. The body is like this. The mind it's like this. Things are changing, and understanding change is something that we need to give greatest importance to. But it's not just the fact that things change, but also that they change according to causes and conditions. This is not a random change, or these are not changes that are part of the plan of a creator God. These are changes that take place through a very complex, unimaginably complex web of causes and conditions. But in this huge web of causes and conditions, we only really need to be interested or give our greatest amount of time to those changes which have an effect on our mind and body. And the Buddha taught very simply that we suffer because of ignorance and the cravings that arise together with ignorance, and that we free ourselves from suffering through the abandonment of defilement, which is effected through the Eightfold Path. And this path from suffering to liberation, from suffering to being caught up with and carried along by the stream of change, to the realization of the timeless and the deathless. This is a possibility. It is a potential for all human beings, from whatever country, from whatever continent they come, whether men or women, young or old, rich or poor. And this is one of our key Buddhist convictions, that we all bear within us the potential for enlightenment. And on the Visakha day, 2,500 and more years ago, we can say that the Bodhisattva realized enlightenment, became Buddha as a representative of the human race. He proved through his enlightenment that enlightenment is a possibility. It is a realistic goal to aim for in life. So our conviction, our belief in the enlightenment of the Buddha implies, I would say, a belief in the potential for all human beings to realize enlightenment. And that also, nested within that, there is perhaps the most important insight or understanding, and that is that we, each one of us, bears within us that potential. And we can begin to put that conviction, that belief to the test by trying to abandon the unwholesome, develop the wholesome, purify the mind. And every time that we are able to abandon the unwholesome or develop the wholesome, even in the small, mundane matters, then reminding ourselves that this is added proof that we can do this. It's not beyond us. And we're looking very closely. We're putting our effort into putting to the test those things that we take on faith or on trust. And the more we practice, the more we see the results of practice, then the stronger our conviction grows. So our faith is not in things that we have no possibility of ever realizing as a direct experience, but our testing of our faith can occur throughout the day, every day. And we look at the body and we look at the mind, and we see what? We see things arising and passing away. And we see the arising of defilement in the mind, for instance. Now in this year, people are having far more time to be by themselves, probably other than monastics or dedicated meditators, probably more than ever before. And that can be both a blessing and a curse, in that without right view, the habit accumulated over countless lifetimes is to assume and to believe, we can say superstitiously believe, that every mental state is who we are. And so without the right view that the Buddha taught us, people can become overwhelmed by the negative mental states that they discover when they are suddenly deprived of all means of distraction. For Buddhist meditators, we have the advantage of our initial belief that mental states are not self, they're not who we are, they don't belong to us. But in the practice now, we're looking very closely. Is that true? And we can see that in a second before, you have a sort of fear, anxiety, confusion, doubt, anger. The second before that appears in your mind, you have absolutely no conception that will arise in your mind. There it is. Suddenly it's there. And if your mindfulness is very sharp, you will observe that initially there is no sense that is who you are, that is your mental state, your weakness, your fault, but that there is a grasping on to the mental state. And then there is a adding on to a proliferation of the mental state, making a story out of it. And this clear seeing is what allows us to let go. It's not we're trying to persuade ourselves that mental states are not self in order to be a good Buddhist. but we're taking the hypothesis and putting it to the test. And we're looking very closely. You see, yeah, it just arises. And it stays for a while, and then it passes away. And then we observe also the state after it's passed away. So close, interested, relaxed observation, without wanting to feel anything, without wanting to get rid of anything, but just looking and having that relaxed, interested, curious kind of looking like say like a child. You take a child to the zoo the first time, and the child looking through the cages at all the strange creatures. That's how you look at mental states. It's just they can't get at you; they're behind bars. You just look at them, and as long as you don't climb through the bars and grab onto one, it can't do anything to you. You're just looking at it. So interest, curiosity, enjoyment, and mental states that arise. Why do they arise? Well, because they've arisen in the past. You've indulged in them, you've identified with them, you've been fooled by them in the past, and that's the karmic energy which leads to them reappearing in your mind. But when you're simply watching and not adding on to them, and not fighting with them, not being oppressed by them, then they lose a little bit of energy. Each time you do that, they fade away. So when we see this, we don't have to fear. It's not just that anxiety is suffering, but the fear, not wanting to be anxious, and feeling overwhelmed by anxiety, is like adding poison to the arrow in the Buddha's simile. See, yeah, it's like this. This is what anxiety is like. This is what feels like this. Feels like this in the body. Feels like this in the mind. And we don't add to it. We can watch it pass away. Oh, it arises and passes away. And we can see that the more we do this, then the more the mind is impressed by the process rather than the content of mental states. So there are two aspects of mental state. There's what the content of it is, how it feels, or what the thoughts that constitute it are, and there is the other aspect is that it arises and passes away. And the most exalted mental states, the most awful, nasty mental states, seen as processes, they're just one thing. They arise and they pass away. So we're developing this ability to see, to understand, penetrate the nature of things. But our ability to do that is dependent upon how we take care of our body, our speech, and our mind, and regular chanting, meditation practice in order to learn the skills of focus and developing the strength of mindfulness and sampajanya, clear comprehension, and atapi, it's like appropriate effort, not too tight, not too loose. And these are skills that we need to develop, how to protect the mind from unarisen, unwholesome dhammas, to let go of arisen, wholesome dhammas, to bring into the mind, to introduce into the mind wholesome dhammas that have not yet appeared, learning how to take care of those that have appeared. So these are all ways in which we are bringing the mind to a sense of maturity and readiness, and a strength and a flexibility, and an integrity which allows the wisdom to penetrate deeply within us. So we have these teachings. The teachings are all the teachings that we need to follow in the footsteps of the Arahants, the footsteps of the Buddha himself. We are in the fortunate position of having access to those teachings. The great monks and nuns and practitioners over the past 2,000 more years have preserved these teachings and transmitted them and put them to the test and proved through their lives that they are timeless. It's not just that beings with great spiritual potential at the time of the Buddha could follow in the Buddha's footsteps, but this teaching is the truth of the body and the mind, and the truth of what creates suffering and what alleviates suffering. And thanks to the efforts, goodness and kindness and compassion of countless beings over the past centuries, then we have this opportunity to apply these teachings to our own life, and then to share what we have realized with others. So Visakha Puja is a day where we can reflect on this and our debt of gratitude to the Lord Buddha, debt of gratitude to the teachings, debt of gratitude to the Arya Pugala, the Sangha of enlightened disciples who have taken care of these teachings and preserved them for all of us. But our duty as Buddhists is not simply to feel that sense of gratitude, but to try to repay that gratitude by applying those teachings. So the changes that are taking place, they're just change. The challenge of adapting to the changes brought on by the coronavirus are in essence no different from the changes that are taking place in our life at any time. It's learning how to cultivate our body, speech and mind in the best possible way. There are all kinds of questions ahead and unresolved issues in the world, and nobody really knows what the world's going to be like after this virus has disappeared or has been reduced to a manageable level. And right now, it's nothing more than speculation. But what we can take responsibility for, and we could, is what we can do. What can you do right now, this morning, this afternoon, this evening? Not what might happen or what you might be able to do in the future, but in this particular time, this particular year, then let's put our effort into the present moment and creating the causes and conditions for acting in the most mindful, wise, compassionate way possible in the future. So I would like to offer my best wishes and blessing for you all to grow in dana, sila, pavana, for the members of the Sangha, for sila, samadhi, panya. May you be able to put to the test of your own experience all of the teachings of the Buddha, and to ultimately realize the timeless, the deathless truth that the Buddha himself realized on the day that we now celebrate as Visakha Puja.